My first take is that the Hawks should keep Trae Young, despite winning the number one pick in the draft lottery, and instead offer that number one pick and one of the DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella contracts to Brooklyn from Mikal Bridges. And I think the Nets should say yes. That's my first hot take here. There's a lot of talk about what the Hawks are going to do with that number one pick. They go up from number 10 to number 1. You and Brendan covered this. I never really thought they should trade Trae Young in the first place. I think he's still a special talent, as frustrating as he might be. He's still the face of your franchise. He's still a capable of being a top 20 guy. He's still one of the best offensive players in the NBA. And if you're going to rebuild around DeJounte Murray, I don't know that maybe your floor is a little bit higher and maybe things are a little bit more copacetic in the locker room, but your ceiling is nothing. Like, I like DeJounte Murray just fine. He cannot be the best player on even a playoff team. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. So you don't really need that number one pick. I know that this draft isn't super people aren't really high on this draft anyway. I don't know what whiffing on another draft pick does for you if you're the Hawks, because their draft history has not been awesome. But you have a legit star in Trae Young. Build around him. Go get the wing that you haven't been able to draft. And if you're the Brooklyn Nets, it's a little bit of a get out of jail free card. I know that they've been reluctant to trade Mikal Bridges, that they think of him as the face of the franchise going forward and a big cornerstone piece going forward, but he's not. So stop. Like, he's a fine player, but he's not a guy that you can build around, and he's already 27 years old. And if you're the Nets, you don't have any means of getting high picks anytime soon. They're hoping on these Phoenix Suns picks maybe turning out to be better than what they are, but that's not even a guarantee right now. And so I would trade Bridges for the number one pick and then go get a nice salary with DeAndre Hunter or Clint Capella and reboot this thing, because as low as people might be on this draft, there will be a star who comes out of this draft. And if you're Brooklyn, getting the number one pick at least gets you a shot at something that's transformative.
Yeah, look, the Nets could use a lottery ticket. The Nets are a team that I think are in a good spot to be a lottery ticket. Brendan has talked about them as like a team that should trade for Mitchell. I just don't really see it. I don't. I don't think that's a team that can really support Mitchell to the way you would need to if you're going to do that kind of move. Take the lottery ticket, take a SAR and roll the dice on him. Take whatever guy that's like in that top 5 prospects that's kind of all over the place and say, F it, we're gonna shoot for the moon on this one. And if you're Atlanta, I kind of get this. If this was a better draft, if this was like there was even like a Cade level prospect or a Mobley or that level of a class, I might have just blown it all up here and said, like, let's just reset and figure this out and retool. That's not really what this draft offers. So yeah, I like this. And Mikal Bridges as far as a guy that you could play with Trae, that's about as good as you're gonna get as far as a fit with Trae. He's gonna cover for him defensively, and what is the biggest issue I think we've seen with Bridges? There's a cap on how big his offensive game can be as him as a lead guy. You want to talk about a guy who's gonna like make his offensive role make sense while still maybe allowing him to play make some. It's him with Trae Young. As far as like where he could go this summer, that's a great fit, I think, for what Mikal Bridges is.
And you could still pull that DeJounte Murray lever, and you would trade DeJounte Murray this summer for some other assets and some other things, but you would be building around Trae Young and Mikal Bridges as opposed to around Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. We know that the Murray Trae Young thing doesn't work, but to your point, Chris, like Young and Bridges, that makes sense on paper, and I think it would make sense in real life too.
Got to get DeAndre Hunter out of there, and I think probably DeJounte Murray out of there. Did you see, by the way, that DeJounte and Trae did a podcast? Like, I don't know which one of them's podcast it is.
Yeah, I think Trae Young is the one that has a podcast, and I can't keep track of all these podcasts, and quite frankly, I really don't care. But
our friendship is deeper than basketball.
Our friendships, like we hang out sometimes, and you're like, all right, cool, like.
I don't believe anything they say.
And was that the problem? I don't think anybody thinks the problem is that they don't get along. Like, that's just it's such like a basketball player thing to do. It's like, I don't know why people don't think we could play together. We get along great. And like, we never thought that you guys were fighting. You guys just don't work together on the court.
No, it's for like the weirdos on Instagram who are like obsessed with like player friendship and like understanding that these guys don't always get along and aren't you don't have to be best buds to like win titles. That's not really how this works.
No, I mean, it helps, but also, what helps is when there's not redundancies on the roster and there's meaningful differences when you guys are on and off the court and you guys are able to play together, but they We had questions when they got together in the first place. None of this is shocking.
Yeah, I love this take. They should. I think I agree. I think I agree with you on this take. I don't even know. I think this just is the logical way for Atlanta to do some things. But I think regardless, like this feels like the reset, like a reset team this summer.
And then
Like
from
if
the
you're gonna
Nets
do
perspective,
a list,
it's like I understand not trading Mikal Bridges for a couple of picks that you don't know where they're going to land, but somebody's sitting here offering you the number one pick in the draft. I think you almost have to take it
Well,
if you're
and
Brooklyn.
let me ask you this: what is the Nets' identity right now? Like, if we were gonna say what is their path, what are they doing? I don't think they have one.
And even from a business perspective, Mikal Bridges ain't selling tickets. But the
No,
number one pick, you could
Ben's
sell tickets. Like you could sell tickets on, we just got the number one pick in the draft. You could sell tickets on hope. Whether or not that player becomes good or not, you could sell tickets on hope, a new thing, something exciting. People will buy more tickets with the number one pick there than they would Mikal Bridges there. And I don't know how much that matters, and it probably shouldn't that matter that much in a basketball operations standpoint, but it is just a bonus. And they need to shake it up. And I don't know that as good as Mikal Bridges is as a basketball player, losing him isn't going to set your franchise back a meaningful amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's
Invest in the law. Yeah, you got a new head coach who is one of the leading offensive minds on the league as far as assistant coach, and Jordy Fernandez. Lean on that guy, build with that guy, get him the kind of young player he wants at number one, and go from there. I love this take. All right, my first one, Wes. NBA draft combine season's going on. I'm not going to talk about Bronny. We could have had one about that. I'm looking at Zach Edey and I'm looking at Donovan Clingan. These two centers that are going to go different levels of the lottery. It seems like Edey is going to be a lottery pick based on the reporting from ESPN and others, which for him, good on you for going back to college for you're kind of being the same guy and maybe improving some stuff. And you went from like second rounder and like not a great contract to like lotto pick. That's good on you. But my take is this. NBA, they are both talking about how they can shoot threes and trying to showcase that they are spacers at this combine. My take is that I think we're getting a little too weird with this, needing every single center to shoot threes. I don't need every center to shoot threes. I would rather a center be like a Derek Lively who can block shots and screen and do the stuff you actually need a center to do and provide that structure than just space for the sake of spacing. Like centers who just are going to take threes and they aren't like great at it, I don't think it's always as additive as people think it is. I understand it as far as you want to create space, you want to stretch, but you don't have to do this. And I think guys are working themselves into this because they think they need to. I think we might have gone a little too far with needing every big to be a spacer. Like play to your strengths, play what you're good at. Donovan Clingan can go to the Grizzlies. He would be a great Grizzly. They're not going to be in the pick range to get him, I think, but he went like there and he just does what he did at UConn. It's like that you're going to make a ton of money and be awesome in the NBA. I don't need you to tell me that. You're like, I'm working on my three ball. You know, like I don't care. Just we're going like a step too far with needing every single big to talk about wanting to shoot threes. Like Jared Allen talked about threes. I don't need Jared Allen to shoot threes to make a lot of money and have a good NBA career.
This is why Brook Lopez might be one of the most important centers in NBA history. It's because you've got so many 7-footers who would have made sense in the NBA 15 years ago, not make sense anymore because you see teams want Brook Lopez types, guys who could protect the basket and shoot threes. Not 3 and D players, 3 and B players, right? Threes and blocks, and that's what you want. I understand if you're Clingan or Edey that, like you mentioned, I'd rather have like a Derek Lively type or something. I think that vertical spacing, that rim roller, all that stuff is that athleticism is really important. But if you're Edey and you're Clingan, you don't have that. You don't have that A to B straight line speed. You don't have that vertical leap. You don't have that kind of athleticism, and so you do almost have to try to be Brook Lopez Jr., like a disciple of the Brook Lopez types, where if you can't shoot the three, then you basically become pretty limited as a player. You basically become Zubac, right? And who's a good player, but not a lottery pick. And so I think the difference between, okay, if this guy is shooting threes, then maybe we can justify taking him in the lottery. Because if he's not spacing the floor for us, then he gets played off the floor a little bit. We do have concerns about whether or not he could switch out onto the perimeter and pick and roll. Is he going to get played off the court at the NBA level? The only way to figure that out is to get him to the NBA level. Like, you could do all these cone drills and all these side to side steps and all these things that you want. We're not going to know whether or not this guy gets played off the floor on a switch until he's actually playing, probably in a playoff game at the NBA level. So to me, those players make sense at the end of the first round because they're still utility players, good rebounders, good screeners, big bodies, all those things, good rim protectors. But if you want to be a lottery pick, you almost have to have that something extra. And for a lot of these guys, that three-point shot is a little extra. I do agree with you on this standpoint. I don't need to see endless videos of Zach Edey shooting threes with a super slow release against nobody and being like, look at this guy. He's got that
Rudy
three ball.
Gobert did that. And guess what he didn't do? Shoot threes this year. You know? Like, what are we doing?
To me, when I'm watching the draft stuff, and I haven't dove into my draft prep yet. I'm just really now starting to do it now that the combine is going on. But I saw the videos, and this guy's release is so slow. He is never going to get that shot off. I don't care that he's 7'4". He's never going to get that shot off at the NBA level. I need to see a quick, smooth release, and then have that go in at a decent clip. Like, this stuff at the combine does not impress me.
No, and even as like a trailer, right? Like if he was like coming up the floor, it's like by the time he is in position because of how big he is to be the trailing shooter, it's not even like Brook Lopez where he moves fast enough where he could like swing, he gets the ball at the top of the key and gets one off. The defense will be back set defending him by the time he's even in position. So it's like, what is the value here? Like I get it, and like again, it seems like the way Gavoni wrote about it at ESPN is that he's going to be a lotto pick, and some teams have him in the top 10 because he rates out great in analytic models. He's doing that without needing to like prove that he could shoot threes. It just feels like you are like, it's like this is like public selling, and I'm being a curmudgeon, and I think I am, but I just don't need it. I would rather like have a center, unless you're going to like be like 36, 37, 38%. I don't really know if I need it, you know, like unless you're actually going to be at something teams respect, do I really need this is really my question.
And there's a chance to develop that at the NBA level, right? And I understand wanting to show it in the draft process. So maybe, you know, you go a little bit higher in the draft, you make a little bit more money, your rookie scale contract is worth a little bit more. I understand why the players are doing it. But if you're an NBA team, to your point, Chris, you can't rely on that player showing that as a rookie. I think you want to see a little bit of touch, but Edey and Klingon, they have touch. Nobody disagrees. Like, Edey's touch within 8 feet of the basket is awesome. Like, top 1% in this class. But yeah, I guess we'll see where it goes. Can we get to my take?
Let's go to next.
We good?
Yeah, let's go.
Here's my second take. If the Celtics were wearing Rockets jerseys, then they wouldn't be the favorite.
See, this is why you're the best. This is why you're the Spice Lord.
I'm not afraid of this Celtics team. I don't think anybody is. Before I get to that point, let's just get to some stats. I think. All right, we'll do the stats first. The Celtics have a net rating of plus 6.4 in the second round. I'm not including their first round, the Celtics, because they're playing against a limping, injured, shell of itself Miami Heat team. But even if you include that, they were 11 points. They have an 11.7 plus 11.7 net rating in the playoffs, which is really good. But in the second round, they're just plus 6.4. Still very good, but not otherworldly the way they were during the regular season, which again was 11.7 plus 11.7, which was there with like the 2017 Warriors and all these things. Like, they were being compared to these historically great teams. In the playoffs, they have not been that. And that's normal. They shouldn't be as good in the playoffs. Like, that difference shouldn't be as much than it was in the regular season. But also consider that they played a skeleton crew Heat team, and this Cavs team, which, no offense, would not have made it out of the first round in the Western Conference, has been without Donovan Mitchell for a game.
Can I get one? Can I have 30 seconds on the clock and just shit on the Cavs for a second?
Sure.
Because they deserve it. This will help your point. The Cavs, after they lost in Game 4, decided to just blame the refs, basically. I understand that they felt they didn't go calls or where there was a free throw disparity. But they did a lot of other stuff wrong in that game. They didn't box out well. They missed a lot of shots. They were rushed. They looked uncomposed. And then every person, JB Bickerstaff, like, his big thing coming out of the game was, the game wasn't ref fairly. I don't really give a shit. Like, if you're like a real team that's tough, you kind of don't go like bitching about the refs after the game. I get you're emotional, but it's like, to your point, it's like the Cavs don't have it. Like, you don't like a team that has it does not come in and like blame everything that they didn't control after a game like that. That drove me nuts. And Boston's like, they're going to get to the finals and play like 15 games at this rate, it feels like.
And it's why I'm not scared of the Celtics. You should be destroying this Cavaliers team, and you're not. Even like plus 6.4 net rating is fine, but I'm watching these games. You are not overwhelmingly beating these teams. Not only that, the Celtics are being outscored by 19 points per 100 possessions in the fourth quarter in these playoffs. They're being outscored by 7 points per 100 possessions in the fourth quarter against the Cavaliers. We've had fourth quarter concerns about the Celtics team all along. Those have not gone away. Jason Tatum, 24 points per game on 42% shooting, 26% on threes. The 10 rebounds is cool. The 5.5 assists is cool. You're also averaging 2.2 turnovers per game. Everybody in Boston will tell you, yeah, but the playmaking and the screen setting is so important. Sick, dude. Score some points. You're not. You're not making shots, and you have not been the star player that I think that the Celtics are going to need him to be to win the championship this year, to beat Denver, to beat OKC, Dallas, Minnesota, whoever it is that comes out of the Western Conference. The numbers have been dominant. I don't think, and they've been dominant in the way, again, compared to the 2017 Warriors, the Michael Jordan Bulls. The biggest difference between those Warriors and those Bulls and these Celtics, miss me with the net rating stuff, all right? I like stats just as much as the next guy, but at some point, opponents were terrified of Michael Jordan. Opponents were terrified of Steph Curry. When Steph made 2 straight three-pointers, the game was almost over. Like, it would just what that did and to worm into the opponent's brain and just be like, "Oh my God, there's no answer for this guy," was debilitating. There is nothing about this Celtics team that feels debilitating at that level. Jason Tatum does not strike fear in you. Jaylen Brown does not strike fear in you. Derek White does not do that. I think as a collective, they're very impressive, and they can get on these avalanche runs, and I think Celtics fans would tell you, well, it's a collective group, and they can hit 23-pointers in a game. Again, sick. That's awesome. They rely on it too much. There's nothing that strikes fear in them. And to me, that matters now that when you look at their net rating and how they've performed against lesser competition than their rivals in the Western Conference, who have the same net rating against much better competition, and they do have something that strikes fear in you, whether it's Shea, Luka, Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic. That's an element that the Boston Celtics don't have. And I go back to the original point I made. I think the scariest thing about the Boston Celtics is that they are wearing Celtics jerseys. They are a good team, but I think we inflate how good they are based on the history and what that jersey means. If you put them in Houston Rockets jerseys, I don't think anybody's scared of them. And I think we look at them more as maybe a regular season juggernaut that doesn't have the bona fides in the playoffs. But because the Celtics are associated with playoff success, I think we view that team a little bit differently.
I love this take. I would love to have seen them have to do in this playoff run, Wes, deal with what Denver just dealt with the Wolves. Obviously, they still have to get out of that series, but they got knocked down in the first 2 games. They were the boxer on the ground, getting counted, have to get back up, shake off the cobwebs, and get back into the fight. They've never had to do that this series. The 2 games they have lost, you could basically look at the Heat game 2 and Cavs game 2 and say that was about the Celtics taking their foot off the gas. That didn't really teach us anything. They didn't get pushed. Those losses were more about the Celtics' losses in the playoffs so far are about what they didn't do more than what any team did to them, in my opinion.
And I know this is going to come off as like me just being like a sour Miami Heat guy, and maybe a little bit of that.
Just post a photo. Just post a photo of you sitting in front of the water, being like, I think you're fine. That's
sorry.
It. You're good.
I don't know. I've not been. This team doesn't move me in the way, and it doesn't feel like a championship team the way that it needs to. And Eric Spoelstra talked about this after the series lost to the Celtics. He said we weren't ready to play Boston. We needed to get through some real playoff challenges and some adversity before we were ready to face the Boston Celtics, because they are, and I want to make this clear, a very good basketball team and could very well win the championship. I'm just telling you that we are inflating how good they are with how good they versus how good they actually are, and I think how much teams, the other teams, actually fear them. It is clear that Cleveland does not fear them. Donovan Mitchell thinks he's the best player in that series, and by the way, I think he is.
He might be. Yeah.
So he's certainly played like it when he's been healthy. So they don't have that fear factor. They don't have that thing that's going to overwhelm you. And I don't think, again, going back to your point and what Spoelstra was talking about, whatever team they face, because they're going to make the finals. So whatever team they face in the finals is going to have dealt with real adversity and stuff that makes you grow in the playoffs. And to me, this Celtics team doesn't feel any different right now, halfway through these playoffs, than they did in the regular season. Where this Denver Nuggets team, this Timberwolves team, OKC, Dallas, they feel tangibly different in a good way, improved, have gone through something, have gone through adversity, have learned about themselves, and have kind of come out of that by being a better team. The playoffs aren't just about which team is healthier and which team gets to the final. That's not the only thing the playoffs are about. The playoffs are a place to learn something. The playoffs are a place to grow. There is nothing like the playoffs to grow. And I don't know that the Celtics, even though they were the best team during the regular season, by the time they get to the finals, they might not be the best team anymore because they have not had to grow through anything. And part of that is the competition, but part of that is on them too. They can grow with less competition, and it doesn't feel like they've done that.
I'm all in on this take. This is a great take. Of the contenders, this is just a fact. Of the contenders, the Celtics have gone through the least amount of adversity that absolutely could hurt them.
They've gone through nothing. They have gone through no adversity. They've gone through absolutely nothing. And I know it frustrates Celtics fans, and it's a big talking point about like, hey, the Celtics are going to have the easiest path to the finals that maybe we've ever seen. And everybody's like, well, we don't have Kristaps Porzingis. It's like, cool, dude. Sucks. You know who? Like the Heat were missing Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier, half their lineup. The Cavaliers have been banged up. They've lost Donovan Mitchell for a game. Like
and
you not having Kristaps Porzingis is not a big deal.
Yeah, we're recording this on Wednesday. I don't think Mitchell's playing in Game 5. I don't think Jared Allen's playing in Game 5. Karis LeVert's on the injury report as well. Like, they're going to get a Cavs team that's going to be rolling out Sam Merrill and Marcus Moore and all this stuff, right? Like,
they could very well win the championship. Every champion requires a fair amount of luck, and I don't want to go too far down the screw the Boston Celtics lane here, but
would they be 5? Would they be 5 on your? Would they be 6 on our titles list?
If they win it, I don't know.
Yeah,
they'd probably be over those 2020 Lakers teams. But I don't know. I'm at the point where I have yet to get impressed, and that's not me being a sour Miami Heat person. That is just I haven't gotten impressed yet, and I need to see something from the Celtics that I haven't seen yet for me to fully buy in on them being the favorite to win the championship because I think they're far from that right now.